Welcome to the Premiership High, where I go through and give a percentage chance to all 9 contenders when it comes to winning the flag. Just a fun little exercise to do before the home and away season finishes. And if it does well, I'll continue doing it because I think checking in every couple of weeks is going to be a fun thing to do. Now, if you're an American sports fan and you watch First Things First, which is an American, obviously sports-based talk show, and you're thinking, isn't this just title pie on a much lower budget? Yes, it is, but it's fun and I'm doing it. So, hey, it's a different name. It's not the same thing, but effectively, all 9, it's not your typical power rankings video. It's something a little bit different. I think it's a little bit fun. Let's get into it from the worst to first. The Hawks are at 1% and get the smallest slice of the Premiership pie. They look the least likely team to make the 8 at this point. Now, if they go ahead and beat the Pies on Thursday, you absolutely have the right to turn around and go, Daz, you're a dickhead. It does now look likely that they're going to make finals. That Collingwood game does have an elimination final feel about it for the Hawks, not for the Pies, obviously. But as it stands now with the information we have at hand, this is where they belong. Now, the Bulldogs could still miss out with their inflated percentage, as we know. But as it stands right now, the Hawks are very much on shaky ground. They've given up 3/4 time leads to 3 of the top 9 teams. You just think of the aforementioned Adelaide game we just had, Freo and Gold Coast, and I think the Hawks were still in the Geelong game at 3/4 time as well. It might even be 4 3/4 time leads. Probably should have checked that before I recorded, but hey, here we are. It seems like this might go to waste, which sucks. Now, like I said, if the Hawks do end up beating the Pies, I think their percentage chance swaps with the Bulldogs, but yeah, this is going to suck if things turn out, not well in terms of making the 8, but I don't think, unless you are rusted on and you want to hate me for an anti-Hawthorn opinion, if that's where you want to stand on this, that's fine. But most people in my comment sections now are resigning to the fact that if you had to put $100 on it, you're probably putting it on the Hawks to miss rather than anyone else. Can't win the granny from 9th. The Suns slot in at 2% here for a reason that's kind of out of their control. They just feel like they're here too early. Now, I don't think they're going to get whacked in an elimination final or anything like that if they don't end up making the top 4. What concerns me a little bit with the Premiership part, and I've talked about this in the Fatal Flaw video, is that historically teams don't really come from nowhere to snatch a flag. Even someone like Hawthorn in 2008, as the rebuild under Clarko was successful, the Hawks still played in 2 finals in 2007. Brisbane before their 3-peat played finals in 2000. So you look at what these clubs have been able to do. History just tells us that it is going to be borderline improbable for the Suns to get the job done. And considering that on their list, they've only got Daniel Rioli, John Noble, and Damien Hardwick that have got that level of finals experience, yes, going through it together circa England in the 2005 Ashes might be a way to go, but I'm not going to bet on it. The Giants get 3%, and a little bit like the Fatal Flaws video, which right now is aging beautifully for nearly all of the teams there. 2.5, 3/4 is just not going to get the job done. It's how much faith do you have that they are able to apply the level of pressure, heat, tenacity, all of those kinds of things that are going to result in them winning their first flag. Me, again, this is not a state of, well, they're not going to make any impact in the finals. They absolutely can. I'm not denying that for a moment. Chances of winning the flag, though, is I have more trust in the long-term durability and sustainability that the other clubs have at this point. I love the midfield, although I still think that they are a quality midfielder short compared to some other teams. And I do love the forward line. I think Jesse Hogan can get back into form. Sam Taylor was exposed against Sam Darcy. Now, unless they play the Bulldogs in a final, not everyone is going to have a Sam Darcy on their list. So we'll see how that goes. But my love for what the Giants can do is currently being rivaled by my pessimism around what they are doing at the moment. You put all of those things together, they've got a little bit of a historical backdrop, especially compared to the Suns, obviously, which puts them a little bit higher. But yeah, not a good week to get smacked by 15 goals. Let's be honest. The Bulldogs get 4% of the pie, which sounds crazy considering they're 9th and still no guarantee to get there, circa the Hawks. However, their best is very good. I know people are going to point to the 2-8 against top 8 teams, and that's actually 0-8 against top 8 teams that are not the Giants. However, if I am going to give them kind of an out here, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, they haven't had too many opportunities in order to improve that record. And on their last chance to do so, they got it done by over 15 goals. No one has had more 70-plus point wins than them. So the form that they're going to have coming in is going to be supreme. Obviously, that Freo game is going to be an extraordinarily important one coming into the back end of the year, but They've hit form at the right time. How that's going to equate to final success remains to be seen. I still worry about that back half a fraction, but they worked beautifully against a pretty potent Giants offense. Yes, that didn't have Toby Green in it. I understand that. But they were able to wither the storm. I think the Bulldogs would love every final to be at Marvel Stadium, and I do not blame them for that. Their game style can stack up. 4% is not too shabby in the slightest. They obviously still have to get there. They've got two pretty good games coming in before the Freo one that would put them in really good stead, and their percentage is still supreme. So until that Freo game gets here, I'm happy giving them a bigger piece of the pie than I suggest maybe some others would. Giving Freo 8% here, which going into the Carlton game, I was thinking if they got the win, their percentage points are going to go up, and it did, and then Hayden Young got subbed out at quarter time, and it faded a little bit, settling on the 8% here. They need Young back as a centre, especially centre forward player that he's become after sort of graduating from that half-back flank. I'm all in on the Dockers and have been all year. That's a killer, though. Just the dynamicism that he brings to this side is just extraordinary. The other downside, if you want to look at it from a pessimistic point of view, is that Sarong can get tagged. He obviously got tagged on the weekend, which is a real shame. But the other really good news, I suppose, is that let's say Freo make it, let's just say they do, you've obviously got 7 other teams in the finals. Only 2 of them really run with any kind of tag. You've got Geelong with Oisin Mullen, of course, and the Giants with Toby Bedford, although that hasn't been as hard a task as it has been beforehand because the Giants are not really deploying him that way. So, yes, the Hawks have got a Finn McGuinness if you think they're going to get there, but Finn hasn't really done full tagging roles, and of course, infamously didn't tag Sarong when the Hawks played over there not too long ago. I definitely could see people thinking it's going to come down to matchups in order to see what Sarong can do, because maybe a Dunkley would go to him at stoppage, not necessarily as a hard tag, but more of a head-to-head come with me. I'll see if we can get some ascendancy in this midfield. But if you want to look at it optimistically as well, and I know the Carlton game is the only one that I want to talk about here, is that the way they powerfully motored past the Blues, a game that was set up as a danger game at halftime, I thought was super impressive. Now, you can come away from it going, it was 4.5 goals over the Blues. They are having trouble with putting the foot on the throat. I get all that. All of that makes sense, but I am buying the high end, the top end of what Freo can deliver. I think 8%, 4th on the pie. Not too bad. Got Geelong jumping up to 15% here. All of the good things about Geelong still exist. The ball movement, the potency up forward. Jack Martin kicking 4 goals in 5 minutes was absolutely on the cards from the start. My goodness me. I still think the downside of the soft run-in exists and is real. It is clear that they're going to be resting some players at the time of recording. Patrick Dangerfield is already set to be rested against the Bombers after their 5-day break, or what is going to be a 5-day break for them. That makes complete sense. Don't mind that in the slightest. So if you're going to be as fresh, primed, and proper as you can, I don't really see a problem with that at all. Not that it is the same thing as a preseason, but you look at what they were able to do to start the year, the way that they dismantled Freo in that round 1 game. The freshest that Geelong can be is still going to offer a pretty potent threat. You look at the teams that are going to be available in that top 4 mark. If they can get a Collingwood, obviously that'll be at the MCG, or if they can get a Gold Coast, especially at the MCG in a qualifying final, bit more unlikely, but could still happen. That would suit them to a T. And if they make a prelim, look out. Because if you are making the prelim, you're either winning that qualifying final and you're set in terms of standing up to finals pressure, or maybe they drop that qualifying final because maybe they're a little bit rusty from the slow lead in. They smacked someone in a semi-final, or they just won by a small margin, but I'm going to go with they get a convincing win in the semi-final. They end up in the prelim. They're going to be primed, proper, and ready to go. You can only deal with the fixture that you've got. I understand that, and it might take a little bit of rust there early on. So if you are playing Geelong in that first final, you are going to need to get a big quarter-time lead and then weather the storm, because if they're in the game really early at quarter-time and get that rust out of their system, they're as dangerous as anyone. And considering the fact that they have beaten Collingwood, they have beaten Adelaide this year already, they're not going to be afraid of anyone. They smacked Gold Coast, like I said before. They smacked Freo. So for the teams that are around them, they're not going to hold anything back. The only team that's pretty much not taken them apart, but the only team that's offered them a really big threat in terms of the win-loss column, Yes, the Collingwood game came down to after the siren, I understand that. But Brisbane at GMHBA did a really good job against them, and they would probably be, in their mind, I think, their biggest threat. They'd be comfortable and I think confident in playing anyone else in the finals. Got Collingwood at 20%. I know a lot of neutral fans are thinking they're in free fall at the moment. Is it a slump that is going to last long term? Is it a slump that is not? I'm not particularly sure. They miss Jeremy Howe terribly, and I cannot believe that I am saying this, but they need Billy Frampton back in a big way. Now, do I think the Darcy Moore hate is a little bit over the top? Yes, I do. Now, were Patrick Voss and Logan Morris exposing him a little bit on the lead? Yes. Darcy's back shoulder work is not perfect, but I went through the stats this morning. His defensive one-on-one loss percentage is still below 20%. In fact, it's at about 14 at the moment, which is 1 in every 7 contests. So if you're targeting him in 7 defensive one-on-ones and he's only getting outmarked once on average, that's a pretty good going. Now, granted, in the last 6 weeks, that has risen and is upwards of that 20%, which is not great. It's not as if it's reaching towards the 40, 50% levels that make you a genuine liability. I think they're going to be able to fix that up in a pretty meaningful way. I still think they're a dangerous midfielder short. Is that going to be Jordan De Goey after, some rust out of his system? He was pretty good at stoppage last week. He's probably going to be the answer to that alongside Nick. I still don't think Mitchell and Long work together against a contender at all. A couple of Collingwood fans have been happy to point out when it has worked, but not against decent opponents. So which one are they going to go with? One of them, of course, has come on and is a bigger body. The other one came second in a Norm Smith medal. So that's going to be an interesting one to go with. Personally, I'm taking Mitchell as the better player, but Ned Long as insurance for the role that he is going to be required to play is going to be key, and they just need to get Dan Houston the ball. Like, if there is a player that deserves some stat padding in order to get himself in prime condition, it's Dan Houston, because this whole 11 disposal, 4 free kicks against crap ain't the go, isn't it all? I know Collingwood play within a system and you got to play your role, but Jesus Christ, putting Josh Dacos at a halfback flank is not a bad thing at all. But Dan Houston, take some more kickouts. I know Josh is, but take some more kickouts. Go round the back, get some cheap ball, get yourself to that 22 comfortable mark, because the 3 times against Brisbane, he was allowed an uncontested kick outside of the defensive 50. It put Collingwood in space. Come on, we can't be stubborn about this. He is what the Pies needed. He's being used like someone that Collingwood doesn't want. That's not good. And after all of that, they're still second on the ladder. They're still going absolutely fine. They're going to be all right, I think. They lose the game against the Hawks, though. This will drop considerably and the Hawks will head upwards. So, go the Hawks. Going to slot the Crows in here at 22%, just under a quarter, unfortunately. Now, everything about the Crows is humming beautifully. Top 2 in offense, top 2 in defense. The back line is unbelievably strong for not the sexiest lineup of names, if you will. The midfield is going pretty well at the moment, let's be honest. With Dawson Rankin available to roll through there. Jake Saligo's put himself through quite a nice season. And of course, the potency of that forward line rings true even without Josh Rochelle there, who I think could have a major part to play in September at his best. Everything about the Crows is going beautifully, and in nearly every other season would be the consensus number 1 pick. They're top of the ladder. Their percentage is really strong. The way they fought back after the first quarter that Hawthorn had put together, the way that they are going through a real mature phase with their group right now, I think they are setting themselves up, especially with their list profile, to be a really strong contender for years to come. Yes, you think Taylor Walker, Rory Laird, Brodie Smith, Wayne Miller may not be there over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, although Wayne's form's been really strong, but from an age point of view, they've got depth there in other areas. So the Crows are setting themselves up beautifully. Is it a case of maybe not this year, but next year, potentially? But yeah, I wasn't wrong on the Crows last year. I was just early. They're flying. They're going beautifully. But there's one thing that's stopping them from getting the biggest piece of the pie. And that is a trust in the reigning Premier, who, yes, only a fortnight ago got smacked by the Suns. I understand that. Not taking anything away from that performance at all. But when the reigning Premier is going as good as they are, they're going to finish higher on the ladder than they did last year. They're going to be pushing for a home qualifying final. They proved last year that they could win finals on the road, including at GWS Stadium and at the MCG. And of course, won the thing on the MCG, of course. So if they are going to play Geelong or Collingwood, say, in a qualifying final, they're going to be golden. And they've beaten both of those two teams in the last, I think, 8 weeks as well. So I think they're just, across the board, they're flying. Of course, the rise of Logan Morris, which anyone could see coming that didn't just watch last week's game. Like, if you watched him at all this year, you'd go, yeah, he is their number one key forward. I don't really know why a lot of media seems surprised by that. We know how deep their midfield goes, but Brisbane are always going to get judged on their outside, their uncontested ball. You look at when Kitty Coleman got injured at the start of last year and Zorko went down there. That was the problem. It was going to be what are they going to be able to do on the outside? Are they going to be able to punish you on transition? Are they going to be able to transition from their D50 to their forward 50? And they've been able to do that good enough throughout the year and absolutely smacked the pies at it this week. It's just going to show that when Brisbane turn up, it's theirs to lose. I'm really sorry, but when the reigning premier is this good again, it is theirs to lose, and unless something drastic happens, they're probably going to be at the top of the pie for as long as it takes. Unless, like I said, something happens that I haven't foreseen yet, this is just where they are going to stand. I don't think we should discount them based on either the fact that we haven't had a back-to-back premier in half a decade, or discounting on the fact that there is a shiny new toy in terms of the Crows. Even if you think Collingwood's the best team in it still after that Brisbane loss, which is going to be relatively unlikely, my question there is going to be, what aren't Brisbane doing that has nothing to do with what they did last year that is concerning you? Now, if you have a genuine answer to that, I respect you. I love that. Keep having your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm right. This is just my opinion. But I can't really wrap my head around knocking the reigning premier for the way that they're going about it, the way they're playing, and the way that they're setting themselves up for finals. And playing away from home is not nearly as big as a threat as it was even 24 months ago. So that is my first premiership high. If the video does well, I'm going to keep doing it. I like the idea. I like the fun that you can have with it. So comment below. Let me know what you think. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy cohort. I want 6,000 subs before finals, and I need your help to get there. Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic start to your week. I'll see you on Wednesday for another video. Goodbye.